Hi everybody, this is Kathy. Welcome back. And tonight I got a message from somebody on one of my videos. And it is the ex-family members of Robert Mast. Yes, this Robert Mast. The one that I said that there's no way he's not up to something. Because there's no way he does not know the Amish. They don't need a diplomat to build a house. They don't need him to build no house. But you know what? I just thank God that people are seeing these videos and stepping forward, because this puts a new piece into the puzzle. So here's the comment that I got tonight. And I'm not going to advertise her name, but it is the family that went against John Mast in court that we've all heard about. Now, this is her comment. I'll be looking more into this whole thing, because I knew Robert Mast was, like I said, I knew there was more to this story and how it was connected. But let's read this. It says, "Thank you, Kathy, for exposing these reprobates. Eric Carroll is not the mastermind of this scam. Robert Mast has a long history of leading his large family of lackeys into using their ex-Amish status to manipulate the justice system and get away with criminal and or immoral behaviors. For those who believed the narrative about John Mast, I am sorry you were conned by master manipulators. Family court, police, forensic, and criminal documents indicate John Mast was an alcoholic, wife-beater, sadistic abuser of children, a gambler, adulterer, a pathological narcissistic liar. Eric never actually knew John Mast. He interviewed him remotely. Eric never asked if there was another side to the story. Eric carries responsibilities for being deceived by a con man way above his skill level. As parents, we carry responsibility for not vetting John Mast enough before blessing his marriage to our precious daughter. Robert Mast could not find an Amish wife to fit John's peculiarities, so he conned my husband into approving a courtship with John and our much younger Amish Christian daughter. Without revealing the reasons, Amish dads refused John's attempts on their daughters. Like you all, Jim Bashir bought the Amish Kool-Aid and trusted Robert and John. John showed his true colors after the birth of his children, and Rebecca was forced to protect herself and the children by leaving North Dakota under a domestic violence protection order. Rebecca is our daughter. She and the grandchildren lived with us. We personally know all the parties involved, and you have not been told the truth about anything. The juries in both trials were never allowed to hear the truth because Mark Munson did not allow any evidence for the defense. Not surprising, he belongs to a religious corporation in the SLC that supports the father's rights, parentheses, to molest movement. Idaho is controlled by SLC, Utah, which is Salt Lake City, if anybody doesn't know. Put the puzzle together. The Masts moved away from their Montana Amish community to be closer to their FRM agenda. It is very profitable to promote the narrative they have chosen to promote. Follow the money. Kudos for Kathy for opening this can of worms. These people need to be held to account. Prison is a good place for repentance and to remove predators from harming the innocent. Kids matter. disabled and vulnerable adults matter. Justice matters. You know, this is very interesting, and it really, if this is true about being the mastermind, like I said, everybody can decide themselves what they want to think about this. But to me, the part about Eric not being the mastermind, but Robert being the mastermind would make much more sense if he was, because that's why Eric had to involve the Amish. That would explain kind of a lot why he not only insisted that it be built by the Amish, and that would explain why Robert Mast came flying in from Idaho to act like a Amish diplomat to build the house. And it would also explain why they insisted on the Amish taking the money. Remember that? Oh, the Amish had this big committee ready, this big piggy bank ready, and they were all going to protect the money. And that also would explain why Eric says that Mast came in on his own dime, and which I don't think I believe that. I would be interested to see if Eric reimbursed John for his expenses, you know what I mean, out of the Whitaker's money, out of the pot. And it would also explain why Mast, they said he wrote the first check. Remember I did a video about that? I said, why would he write the first check? And who did he write that check to? There's nobody to give it to yet. Who's he writing this check to? What did he say? It was the first $500 seed money? And it would also explain why Mast didn't want his face on the camera. Eric said this right here, this day was the only day that he was on camera because it was mission accomplished. This was the last day. Now, I'm curious how, he ties in with cutting this deal off suddenly like this. And you know what else it would explain? It would explain why Patrick was not allowed to meet Robert Mast. And Patrick, even though they were staying in the same Airbnb condo, Patrick was in the condo right next door. But he says he found it very strange that when Eric's friends showed up, which would be Robert Mast from Ohio and douche Mark from California, Patrick said that not once did Eric say, hey, come meet my friends. Eric made a point to keep Patrick separate from Mast and Mark, douche. So it would explain a lot if John is the mastermind. But, like I said, for now, this is a piece of the puzzle. Now, on one of my first Whitaker videos, I'm the first one that exposed this about the John Mast Foundation, because I went snooping a little bit. Who is this John Mast guy? Right there. And no other than Eric Carroll is on the board of directors. I think this is, isn't it? Yeah, board of directors. Yeah, no other than Eric Carroll on his board of directors. And I thought, this is very strange that Eric has these ties with, John Robert Mast, who he claims we need to get the Whitaker's house, which I knew right off the bat this is nonsense. So this here was a strange connection. It just seemed like quite an awful, conflict of interest. And I've been saying it all along. Why would he want to get involved in this? And of all people, he knows better than us, than any one of us who've never been Amish. But he knows better than all of us that you do not need an ex-Amish person to be a diplomat with the Amish to approach them. And then all this nonsense story about them John had to buy a big block of cheese and speak Pennsylvania Dutch in order to give the signal to the Amish. I mean, what a joke. And those were red flags that made me look closer. They thought it was, I didn't even know what they thought, to be honest. It was really dumb to put them details in there like that because it was a dead giveaway. And then Eric tells us that Robert Mast left his elderly wife at home with a freshly broken hip to come and do this nonsense. I thought, wow, why would you do that? Number one, he knows he's not necessary to have the Amish build a house for the Whitakers. He doesn't need to be there. Not even a phone call, So why would he leave his elderly wife with a freshly broken hip, which is devastating when you're elderly? Why would he leave her right after she broke her hip and fly across the country to do a deal he doesn't need to, that is not even necessary? In fact, ridiculous. And on his own money, and write the first $500 check. None of this made sense to me. When, like I said, none of it was necessary. They didn't need the Amish diplomat. We didn't need him. They really didn't need its money. None of it. It was ridiculous. So anyway, that's a new can of worms, and I really, really, really want to thank the person that left that message. You better believe I'm going to look more into this John Mast connection, which I knew that there was a piece of the puzzle missing. And I'm going to be looking more into this. And like I said, I really want to thank the Bashir family for coming forward. And anyway, and I want to thank you all for listening. And, well, something to think about. Thanks for watching. Peace.